What a wonderful morning, wonderful presentations, and the perfect introduction to my theme from Arild. Thank you. Because this is true. Of all the natural resources this world presents to us, this is the most precious. So this is what I have to offer. A phrase to remember, 3 points to make, a tale to tell about school, a personal experience about a school last year, and if we have time, a song to sing with you. It's not enough singing in these meetings, is it? So the points are two rather obvious points, given that what we've learned so far these days. Nothing more important in life than what goes on in childhood. The second point is, nowhere more important in society than the arenas where children spend time. And the third point is slightly different, and I'll give it to you in just a minute. So the phrase is, of course, this. In William Wordsworth's poem, My Heart Leaps Up, the line, "The child is the father of the man," opens a range of metaphoric possibilities, also visually. And one of them is well captured by the artist Catherine Jacobi in her photographic series by the same name. And by her permission, I will show you 4 of her pictures. And I would encourage you to think about yourself in this setting as you see these 4 pictures. It's rather uncanny, isn't it? You can literally sort of see the imprint, inspect the imprint of the child in the grown-up. So this is I'm approaching this topic as a professional, as a public health physician. I'm interested in big questions. Clean water, sanitation, toilets. You know, we have a World Toilet Day. It's a very important day. Vaccination, the knowledge basis for the health services. But as I work with these topics and in my own life, I slowly came to realize that there are no bigger questions than how to take well care of the most precious resource, the mind, for the most precious of us all, the kids. So I changed my career to work with like-minded people, and this is the strategy for the Child Mental Health Center here in Oslo, and some of my colleagues are here today, I believe, and we are also, our mission is to do service improvement across child mental health and child welfare services. and we do postgraduate teaching and applied research as well. But actually helping managers in local services improve outcomes for kids is the main mission for this, and a series, 3 other centers that we work with in Norway. At the moment, we are establishing a strategy also for our work on mindfulness-based approaches, and we work with several of you in the audience in projects in kindergartens and schools. I also come to this topic as a father who had much to learn from his children. And I come as a citizen and as someone who wants to influence policy. And I come to this topic as an ordinary person who would have wanted some more guidance in my own life on how to keep the child within intact longer. In my upbringing, there were many gifts, many great gifts of love and attachment, but it was also a persistent focus on what to become. And perhaps not enough focus on who I should become. So it took me 40 plus years before I really had that look in the mirror. And suddenly connecting with people and realizing that I was not the only one with a voice in my head, not the only one almost all of the time lost in speculations about the future and the past. And part of what I learned was, while not deterministic, the experiences of childhood still create a template also in my own life upon which we'll build our life and from which deeply rooted patterns of behavior emerge. Some of them good, some of them more of a struggle. I learned with Thich Nhat Hanh that the way out is in, to try to learn to be with what is without all the emotional hoo-ha and take it from there. So that's this conference, and what we work with, what we try to undertake in our own lives is of enormous importance. This is our life. This is our chance to awaken. And recently I came by a great inspirational poem. Someone cited Buddha himself when he was, what he answered when he was asked what he gained from meditation. And he answered, nothing. But let me tell you what I've lost. Anger, anxiety, insecurity, depression, and fear of old age and death. So it's a lifelong piece of work, of course, but gradually we learn and benefit from offering less resistance to life itself. So this is my first point, and it echoes what you said so beautifully, that the child is a wonderful teacher. And here is the teacher in front. Why? How? For so many reasons. Let me just point to one. You had it as a child, what you always long for as an adult. Strength, wonder, grace, presence, beauty, worth, significance. See the child's natural competence. No one loves like a child, forgives like a child, is absorbed in play, is loyal like a child, and certainly no adult sleeps like a baby. So not only is there a need to protect and cultivate these resources, but the learning opportunities for me as a grown-up person are literally staring us in the face. And I was so thick-headed that I needed 5 kids in order to learn. I had so much to learn. about being a parent, about being myself. And I couldn't resist, of course. I had to just to include this. And they certainly know how to flash a smile, these kids. But at the same time, I know them, and I know their vulnerabilities, their insecurities, their kindness, but also how they struggle and suffer in the world. Many of them several of them in universities at the moment, where the only things that seems to matter is to the teachers are grades, which is such an uninteresting starting point when you have 200 gifted new students coming into a class, and then you start stressing them about grades. And I remember Ludwig, the one on the left, 6 years old, calmly staring a stressed out father straight in the face and saying, you know, this type of shouting only occurs when you are trying to work, cook, and play at the same time. So much for being a professor. So my first point was this: the child as a wonderful teacher. The children we have and meet, but also maybe the child within. So how do you learn, how do you use your child within yourself as your teacher? How do you reach back to your roots and learn? But this is my second point. Hardly anything more important has happened to you than your childhood. What goes on early in a child's life is of enormous influence later on, for reasons that have already been stated. For that child, for that family, for that lifetime, for that society, for generations that follow. I took away nothing because I need to digress for a minute. The 19th of July 2012 started the Battle of Aleppo, the largest city of Syria. It is still ongoing with tremendous suffering for kids. Ongoing 4 years, 2 months, 3 weeks, 5 days after it started. And it is such a shame on the adult population of this world that we allow this lack of basic survival and safety for these kids to unfold. So even more basic than your early childhood is, of course, survival and safety. And empathy and compassion in society is indeed needed, as this conference has illustrated in so many ways. It is of fundamental importance to how we develop this world. However, returning to the here and now, in no other phase in your life was empathy and compassion important than in this phase. And here. And here. So that you could do this. And this. And not this. And not this. We just completed a survey of kids in out-of-home placements in Norway and small institutions in the child welfare service, and And despite being a so-called welfare state, we allow pockets of our society for kids to suffer deeply. Or this. So the second point follows from the first, then. Since hardly anything is more important than childhood, it is only logical. I could back it up, of course, with data as well, that the most important places in society are where children spend time. And that is my third point. Meaning, at home, in kindergarten, at school. It follows that the most important grown-ups are parents, teachers, and assistants. Thus, the most important field of politics is, and the most important health service concerns and welfare service, etc. You get the point. And we need to rethink seriously what is going on all these arenas. And there is no time to really deepen that talk about that now. But in my opinion, we need a fundamental shift on all these arenas. We need a fundamental shift in parenting, to have to stop parenting from a pedestal by the means of ego and start to learn from the kids rather than try to learn them things. We need a radical shift in how we judge quality in kindergartens and schools. In Norway, more than 80% of all one-year-old kids start kindergarten, which is in many ways a fantastic thing. But it also emphasizes how incredibly important this arena is. I asked one of my close colleagues, the leader of the infant child mental health network that we have in Norway, what if she could choose one thing, what would you do to improve quality in kindergarten? And she said, the entry phase. So still in Norway, we do not have the courage to say to parents that you need 3 months. Take time off your work for 3 months and help the kid adjust to kindergarten with the people working in kindergartens. We still have a week or so to drop them in an environment where we will leave them for 7 or 8 hours every day. And we do not support kindergarten teachers enough. And the same, as we have heard, goes for schools. I'm not the first to point this out, of course. And here are some pioneers also in Norwegian, Helle and Denmark. Helle's book about nærvær og empati. Nærvær var det. Presence and empathy in school. Anna's book about children in balance, the same, presence and empathy in kindergarten. Also other people have pointed to the immense importance of relations, and many of you actually have dedicated your lives to this. You have dedicated yourself to this work with children. Many of you who are here today work with kids in different settings, in kindergartens and in schools and in therapy settings. And we honor you. We honor you. And this, I have a quote which is my gift to you. Forrest Whitcroft, who was a scout leader and an editor of the magazine Scouting, wrote in 1950 in this magazine, 100 years from now, it will not matter what my bank account was, the sort of house I lived in, or the kind of car I drove. but the world may be different because I was important in the life of a boy. This is a white paper on schools in Norway that recently was presented to Parliament, discussed in Parliament, and I really sincerely do respect the school system in Norway and many, many wonderful teachers. And we've had something of a happening these last couple of weeks. On October 5th, the Parliament discussed this white paper, which discusses the fundamentals of schooling in Norway. And for the first time in decades, the Parliament asked the government to return with another paper presenting a full discussion on testing. Because Norway also has become hysterical with grading and testing kids in school and creating often a toxic environment around competition and with not enough people speaking up against influential policymakers around the silliness of these comparisons, where Norway, for instance, always on the international comparisons have been between number 10 and 20 on all of them in basic skills, going up and down over the years. So if you look at the trend, it's completely stable, but the drama in the press every time we have these tests and the ranking of the schools, etc., is just a disgrace. It's an intellectual disgrace as well as an emotional, creates big emotional problems. But for the first time now, the government was asked to return for a full discussion on this, and partly as a result of lobbying by some of the people sitting in this audience, which also points to the fact that there is opportunity for dialogue and discussion and influence in a society like ours, fortunately. And this, and the government by itself, actually, are now introducing socio-emotional learning in Norwegian schools for the first time, and in a systematic way, and public health. So while still heavy-handed on testing and competition, there are hopes for the future. But then I come to my personal experience about another school. Having put 4 kids through Norwegian school, I was interested in this. Let me welcome you to another. This is Cambridge Friends School. In Cambridge, Massachusetts, you will find one of the 80 Quaker schools in the US. And by some sort of coincidence, I spent a year at this school almost every day, in the morning and in the afternoon. The Quaker schools got some press a couple of years ago because President Obama and his wife chose to send their daughters to the one in Washington, D.C. But I had never heard about them. I'd heard about Montessori and other types of special schools, but not the Friends School. And this is their philosophy, and I just love this quote, so I'm going to read it to you. Firmly rooted in the enduring values of the Quakers, Cambridge Friends School is a vibrant 21st century learning community, and here it comes, that chooses simplicity over material possession, peaceful resolution of conflict over aggression, integrity over expedience, equality over aggression, integrity over I said this, stewardship of the earth as a collective and personal responsibility. So CFS students are lovingly educated. They go many places and do many things, each propelled by possibility, motivated by optimism, unrestricted by convention, reinforced by achievement, and guided by principle. And here are the Quaker principles. And the following is some of what you would see if you walked with me through this particular school. This is difficult. This is the day plan in Ben's class. I love the last line. Do this even when no one is watching. So you get the drift. It was a very palpable and moving encounter with the school environment that had the power to transform everybody who came into contact with it. It's fully doable everywhere. What was different? It was value-driven and outcome-focused. It was intensely preoccupied with social justice as a fundamental human right and the quality of relationships, and focused on learning. I must add perhaps that the classes were smaller than in Norwegian schools. And teachers here, as everywhere of course, were very important. And as Thich Nhat Hanh, I firmly believe that happy teachers will change the world. The same goes for some other professions actually. This quote in Cambridge is, "Life is an endless struggle full of frustration and challenges, but eventually you find a hairstylist you like." So this is the task. There is this, I learned from the Quakers, there is this of God, or whatever you call the inner light, the inner spark. There is this, that every child comes with a light within. So the school's task, and our task really, is this. To let that light shine. It must be true, mustn't it? Look at this child. There is this inner light, there is this spark of, and it is our task to let that light shine. So we've come to the promised song. It takes only 1 minute, so that's perfect. The song will have you remember Cambridge Friends School, because that was a sort of school song. If this is the pedagogical principle, it follows that this little light of mine must be the song. And perhaps you will remember the quote that the child is the father of the man, and that the child is such a wonderful teacher, and start using him or her in your own life. Because hardly anything is more important than childhood, and there are no more important places in society than where children spend time. So then I'm going to take off this, and then we're going to sing. If you're sporty, that is. Mute this. So I brought my this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you.
They can't just leave. Okay, thank you so much.